The Xenoblade 3 Direct revealed far more information than I could have ever expected, and it did all of that on top of spoiling pretty much nothing for us. So much in this trailer has got the gears in my brain turning to try and figure out what the plot of this game is even gonna be. Today, however, I'm just going to do my best to sift through this mountain of information for you guys, though I think it might be helpful for you to watch my previous analysis in order to get up to speed on what we've talked about. I'm not going to tread over things that are common knowledge here. If they state something in this direct and we know that thing already, I'm going to save everyone from sitting through a regurgitation of information. I'm just going to skip it. Before we talk about the direct, I want to ask that if you guys enjoy the content on the channel, please drop a sub and a like on this video. Like I've said in previous videos, we passed 2,000 subs recently, but the channel growth is showing no signs of stopping. So join me and everyone else here in learning about all things Xeno. With that, sit down, relax, pour yourself something to drink, and let's get to the direct. To start out, let's talk about these new villains. This room that they're in reminds me a lot of the theater in Uriah. It's possible that this is the same building in Uriah, or that it was just inspired by the playhouse. Wild Ride walks into frame, and a bunch of other villains start appearing. They are called the Consul, and they are likely the real enemy that Van Damme has alluded to in the other trailers. We may have even seen one of them before. In this first trailer, this character is walking away from Melia, and while we can't see them entirely, the clothing seems to fit the part just fine. Each of the members of the Consul seems to be designated with a letter. This one is called P, and one of the people that makes up Wild Ride is called D. Yes, I say one, because when the monster disappears, both D and this other Consul appear. Also, D is just 100% a Graph lookalike. There is no denying it now. While it may seem like they're Ouroboros, they are apparently something else entirely. The website confirms that they're called Mobius. This is likely in reference to the Mobius strip. It's a very unique shape. It's a single-sided object with one edge. It's sort of like a two-dimensional object ripped into the third dimension. Mobius strips do look similar to the infinity symbol that appears in the eyes of the Consul, as well as on the bodies of the Mobius themselves. It doesn't seem like the Mobius form requires multiple people though, because one is formed from just a single member of the Consul in this scene. This one only has a single infinity core in its chest, so the number of those might correspond to the number of people involved in the fusion. This begs the question, can the party create an Ouroboros with only one person, or better yet, all six? I'm pretty certain by the end of the game there's going to be a super duper Ouroboros that has all the party members in it, so I'm leaning toward the answer being yes. On the chests of the Consul members, we see some sort of weird purple core crystal-esque object. This is likely what facilitates their transformation, but there's no telling what these actually are at this point. We don't see a whole lot of the Consul here, but I'll say that they're extremely similar to the Testaments from Xenosaga, which are an incredibly powerful antagonistic force within the series. Testaments are on a level above and beyond other opponents you face in the series, and to avoid any spoilers, I'll just leave it at that and say, play the games. They're also extremely similar to the Gazelle Ministry from Xenogears, but again, I am not trying to spoil too much, so just take my word for it. Something else I want to touch on is, while these guys are disappearing, we can see for literally 2 frames that there are more than these 6 present here. One of these unseen characters is probably this guy, who we'll talk about later, but yes, he does look like Noah. He's not confirmed to be Noah because the website just labels him with a question mark, but come on, he's Noah. We get a look at one of the leaders of the Consul, who has these purple scars all over his face. My crackpot theory is that this is Gaelgar, but that is very unlikely. He just seems like a brand new character. This guy wonders how far the flow will bring them this time. That could mean that the events of this game, and of the Xenoblade series as a whole, have already happened, and that this is just another version in a time loop. This isn't something that's new to the Xeno series after all, so this is fairly probable. We'll talk about more evidence to this theory when we get further into the trailer. We move on to another section of the trailer where Noah explains the lifespans of the soldiers. The music that plays here is extremely good and actually has vocals. I've tried to transcribe the lyrics, but unfortunately, all of the cool action happening is too loud, and I was only able to understand this much. I can promise you that some of us are going to cry whenever we hear this song by the time the end of the game is over. There are several new songs in this trailer, as well as extended versions of songs we've barely heard. I cannot wait to hear them in this game. Noah explains that the inhabitants of Ionios only have 10 years to live. Not that they just fight for 10 years, or terms as Noah calls them. Like, they're literally born at age 10 and die at age 20. The trailer even gives us a look at these pods that have children growing inside of them. So the people of Ionios aren't even naturally born. They're all artificial, so what might be happening here is that the death from the war fills up the clocks of Kevis and Agnes, so they can recycle the life energy into more artificial people and rinse and repeat. The crazy thing is how this might mean that everyone is a clone. The DNA for all of these artificial people came from somewhere, so who did it come from? This evil Noah lookalike is a good candidate for maybe being the originator of his DNA. When he talks at the end of the trailer, he speaks like he's witnessed all this happen before, so it's possible. For all we know, every single character in this game could be a clone. Melia and Nia could have died long ago, but they just keep cloning themselves to keep the cycle up. The saddest part here is that it genuinely seems like the people in Ionios are created only to fight and die, and yeah, we kinda knew that, but now we know they don't even get to grow up. They barely even get a personal life. They get almost no chance to even think about living a normal life. There's seemingly almost no one not involved in this war. People are literally created for murder, and even if they survive, they die after 10 years. God damn. Next, we hear some of the party members saying super vulnerable stuff and contemplating their own mortality. Then this guy shows up, who I'm pretty sure is different from the members of the console we've seen previously, so he might be one of the ones we can only see for basically a single frame before their boss starts talking. He's sitting at a desk in Keves, which we know because of the emblem behind him. Later in the direct, Tyon pretty much confirms that the console is involved in both governments. They're playing both sides of the war and run the entire show. This guy turns into the solo Mobius that we talked about. He basically absorbs the life energy from the giant flame clock as well as the soldiers around him. What's weird is, why doesn't he just absorb the party's life energy and get it over with? Maybe he can't, or just doesn't want to. After he kills the soldiers, he says, "We can just grow more," which calls back to how people are just grown in these pods and not born naturally. Next, we see Mio and Noah falling in a clip that seems to take place at the same time when Noah gets his Iron Man gauntlet. Noah stabs the flame clock with his smaller sword, and this red stuff comes out, which looks super weird. The particles are the life energy, but the cut looks like it's made of something more solid. After that, Mio boops Noah on the head, and it's very cute, and the music cuts out. We are now given 100% confirmation that the tattoos correspond to the life you have left, and Mio apparently only has 3 months left. And as this trailer makes apparent, it's a big part of her character arc and motivation. Next, we see these console members entering the People Farm, which is just what I'm gonna call this place now. Evil Noah is standing in front of a screen that's displaying some kind of footage, although we can't see what. This shows that the console have their hand in even more than the government's. Not only are they completely controlling the war, it seems like they control the production of people as well. Someone says the lost numbers are attacking, which is pretty ambiguous. The only thing this could mean, in my opinion, is that there are maybe some lost Keves colonies since they're numbered. The ships are more gray than black or white, and Van Damme is apparently not aligned with either Keves or Agnes according to promotional material, so maybe this is where he came from? Next, we see a ton of rubble fall on top of this kid. there's another shot of him later alongside Noah and his friends, so he definitely knew them and might even have been friends with them. Xeno games like to do the whole, "oh, you thought I was dead" thing, so people are theorizing that he could be one of the console, particularly this larger one. We'll have to see though. These people could literally be anyone. They could be the original versions of the party members for all we know. We really just have to wait and see. In this shot, we can see Noah's Ouroboros fighting against Ethel's mech, which is a battle that I am very excited to see more of. Next, Lawrence gets attacked by this girl with what looks to be gauntlets, so maybe these are a type of knuckle claws? Her unique design and weapon mean that she probably ends up being a hero. As we've seen, pretty much every hero we encounter starts by attacking us, so this is just par for the course. We see this dragon very briefly being punched by Lance's Ouroboros. People have pointed out how similar it looks to the Xenoblade 1 dragons, so maybe they're a similar species? Manana says that the Annihilator has started moving, and it shows us this huge laser on the front of this KOS city, possibly an upgraded Alchemoth. This is also where we hear Riku's extremely low voice for the first time.
"This is bad, Noah.
I don't understand. I don't know why this choice was made. I don't know if I like it, but this is the reality we're in, I guess." So, anyway, there's an Ouroboros right here, and it isn't one that the party can access as far as we know. We know that it's an Ouroboros and not a Mobius since the colors are more purple and muted than red and dark. There's also only a single core without an infinity symbol. People have been theorizing that Ethel and Kamaravi might make an Ouroboros together, and this could be what we're looking at here. In this brutal shot, we see Noah with a bloody fist and bags under his eyes. Here you go, everyone. Here's all the Noah trauma we wanted. I hope you're happy. At the very end of the trailer, we can see that more people are in the theater from the beginning. There are 2 red consoles, their leader that we've seen, and on the right is Evil Noah, or as the website refers to him, ? He says that many have tried to escape the flow of fate, but everyone has failed. This is more evidence that some sort of time loop or eternal recurrence is happening here. I'll bring back up how many of the characters in the console have an infinity symbol in their eyes. A possible theory here is that our main characters have flame clocks in their eyes. We know from the website that these can tell them all sorts of information, especially how much time they have left. Maybe the members of the console have an infinity symbol because they just don't die. What do you guys think? The direct moves on and shows us an extended version of the beginning of the first trailer. We can see that when people die, they literally get all the energy drained from them, and they look as if they almost turn to stone. They are artificial people, so this might just be a thing that happens. The direct narrator mentions that all of the killing is to fill up one's flame clock. We know that the giant flame clocks get energy, but it doesn't seem like the soldiers do. So I'm not sure I understand this specific wording of one's flame clock. Next we see that if you manage to avoid a swift death in the war and make it to the end of your 10th term, you get to die in front of Melia or Nia instead. Oh great, what a high honor. I am so glad that's the reward for my service. At the end of this section, we can see the party looking out over that Alchemoth-like landmass. This is most likely where Melia is, and I'm sure we'll be able to go there. The main character section doesn't show us too much new stuff, but there are some things worth talking about. We see a lot more of the cutscene where the party unites for the first time. The fight choreography is so good here. If this is the new standard, then this is incredible. It's always been very good in this series, but this is definitely a step above the others. This shot shows us that Lance can turn his greatsword into some sort of turret, which I was not expecting. The narrator tells us that everyone is here because they were commissioned to take part in a special mission, which we aren't told the specifics of. I would imagine it would be to take out the other team, although maybe there's some sort of manipulation going on, since the console have been doing that, or since Van Damme shows up and seemingly knew they would be there to begin with. He gives us the same spiel about how they're connected now and blah blah blah. But interestingly, when he refers to Sword March, he calls it our city. So it seems like there might be a ton more people there than we expected, which begs the question, do they have only 10 years to live? Van Damme is visibly old and has clearly lived longer than anyone we've seen, on top of Ethel most likely being older than 20 years old. However, it's technically possible that they could have maybe been grown in a pod for longer than anyone else, but I don't think that's the case. So how is it that people are living longer? Next we see a bunch of character intros. There's really nothing new here, but they're pretty cool. Tyon begins explaining how he thinks that it's weird that the console are directing the war on both sides. They've become aware that maybe this entire conflict was started for some other reason. There's this shot of Ethel standing next to a somewhat important looking character that we don't know the name of. I say he's important because his design looks less generic than the other soldiers. The direct cuts to this super cute scene of Mio and Senna getting excited over finding water in Aegis Wilderness. Then, we see tons of shots in the world with some new stuff. This area, which we've seen before, is labeled as Erythia Sea towards the end of the direct, obviously a combination of Aerith Sea and Leftheria. There seems to be a colony over there with a flying Pharaonis. I haven't mentioned it yet, but that is what the giant machines with the huge flame clocks are called, Pharaonis. I like how the naming convention is similar to how Bionis and Mechonis were localized. The word ferrum is actually Latin for iron, so these things are essentially called iron gods or giant iron gods. I previously thought that these machines were colonies, but that is clearly not the case. They're just part of the colonies. If we look a little to the left, we can actually see the Bionis horn out in the distance, and that's really important. At the end of Xenoblade 1, we can see that what's left of Colony 9 is not located too far from the horn. Whether or not that's the case now, who can really say, but I would definitely try exploring this area a bit more to see if there's anything having to do with that here. This area looks a lot like Noctilum from Xenoblade X. I'm just going to put this right here, recommend this video you may or may not have seen. This shot shows us that enemies can be hostile to each other, which is honestly something I've wanted in this series since I played for the first time almost 10 years ago. Oh my god, it's been almost 10 years. If you press ZR, you can gain their attention, so this might be the lure function, just handled differently. There's also this strange blue light in the background that I can't tell you anything else about. Next we see the party in a new area called Capricorn Peak, which is very snowy. We've seen that Uriah is covered in snow higher up, so maybe that's where this is. Next we can see the party running around the base of the Great Sword with a level 42 monster nearby. So that might give an indication on how far into the game we reach here, but unique monster levels can be really weird, so it might even be earlier. Just like Rotbart, our friend Immovable Gonzalez is also here, which is great to see. Melnath's Shoulder makes a reappearance in this game, being the location for Colony Gamma. If you're not aware, Melnath's Shoulder is a part of Gormott. It's that area where Uman's shipyard is. This is not the first, and it certainly won't be the last area from previous games. Speaking of, we finally get to see Colony 9. It definitely looks very different than the Colony 9 we know. The tents everywhere indicate that colonies likely move around a bit more rather than staying put. There's this flame clock UI element here for some reason. My question is, if we're being hunted down by both nations, then why are we allowed to just traipse around inside the colonies? Maybe after the party liberates one, they become friendly to us? This screenshot on the website certainly suggests something like that may happen. We might need to manage the flame clocks of the colonies by doing quests or something, and maybe we've even found an alternate energy resource. We can see here that accessories from Xenoblade 2 have made their return, which is nice, and the dining halls that we learned about recently are found within the colonies. Something huge that they showed off is that the affinity chart is back, and it's a lot closer to Xenoblade X's. Party member connections with NPCs are present, as well as portraits for characters mentioned but not met. This chart reveals so much information to us, it's crazy. The most important thing on the chart is the meep right here. Seriously though, the most important thing in my opinion is the Collectopedia card down at the bottom. Yep, it's back and seems to have increased functionality. According to the website, these rectangular icons are connected to the Collectopedia. These cards seem to be a group of items that the NPC is looking for, so rather than an area having a page in the Collectopedia, I think each NPC does instead. Back to the chart, we can see that Ryza is an Urian from Colony Iota, an Agnes colony that we have not heard about before, and he has a connection with someone from a brand new species. Horned individuals have shown up before in promotional material, most notably Nimue. There's also a hero that we'll talk about later from this species. Hyentia can now have different colored wings. This one has purple wings, and this one has red wings. Honestly, that's a super cool concept that I never thought I needed. There's also this girl here that has what look to be mouse ears. She could just be a Gomati with a different ear shape, but these are very rounded. I imagine with all the genetic engineering, it wouldn't be a stretch to say that several new species or crossbreeds of people have begun popping up. Some nice quality of life stuff has been shown in the cooking menu here. We're able to both pin important items in cooking and gem crafting, as well as favorite dishes that we find useful. Both of these options are just going to make menuing so much easier. We're also able to receive side quests from rest points while the characters are talking amongst themselves, which will definitely add tons of replay value. The example they use also reveals to us a little bit of world building. Senna refers to this character as Lambda's Offseer. This wording indicates to me that each colony typically only has one Offseer, which is something I don't think has been explained before. A new mechanic, supply drops, was shown off. We don't know exactly how it works, but maybe friendly colonies will randomly give us helpful items? Or maybe this is tied to the generic amiibo functionality that was revealed at the end of the direct. Next, we see a level 100 super boss, confirming that they are, in fact, in the game. Not that we thought that they wouldn't be. After that, we see these yellow dinosaur-looking footprints appearing on the ground. This might be that tracking thing that occasionally happens after certain field skill checks. This rail grinding section shows us the inside of Uriah, the Urian tunnels, and it looks like a massive area to explore. Then there's a shot of Arithia Sea with that boat from the first trailer. I'm very curious how this functions, and if we have any other modes of transportation, like an airship or maybe even a skell. Next, we see Noah activate the navigation feature that functions pretty similarly to how it did in Xenoblade Definitive Edition, but that is nothing compared to one of the most insane things in this direct. The fact that we see that Dana Desert from Torna is back, but Torna was completely destroyed hundreds, probably even thousands of years before this game takes place. So what is the Dana Desert doing here, seemingly fully intact? I honestly have no idea. A weird theory is that maybe they tried cloning Titans? Very quickly, they show us that the time can be changed by the hour, rather than time of day like I stated in another video. Back in Colony Gamma, we can see that the Flame Clock UI element is returning, this time half full, which definitely means that this is a recurring feature of some sort. As we move into the combat section, we see more of the cutscene that plays when the party runs out from behind these rocks. It's pretty funny and has some nice character building. We can see that up in the Faranis, they're actually fighting against what looks to be a member of the Consul, adding more context to this particular scene. We see a bunch of combat clips, but the most important one that shows up is this one, that finally shows us how character swapping looks. It's extremely fast, much faster than I anticipated, and it also seems like cooldowns are preserved if the AI is used in art, so be careful of that. Next, we see more on chain attacks, although we still don't entirely understand what's going on. We just know that we can select different chain orders that result in different finishers and effects at the end of the chain. This adds a lot of variety to the system, especially considering that Ouroboros can be involved in them. At the end of the direct, they show this screen that has these order log messages that say cool underneath Noah and Mio's names. I don't know what these could mean, but they definitely have something to do with the chain order options. The class section is extremely exciting. This cutscene reveals to us that classes are actually real in the game's world. Noah can physically see class icons above everyone's heads, So it's possible that people are genetically engineered to have their classes at birth. That's pretty crazy. They give us a rundown on the main classes, and there's nothing of note until we get to Senna's class, which is not Crusher like we thought. It's Ogre. Insert funny Shrek joke here. We're shown the Master Arts menu, and clear as day, we can see that you can mix arts from multiple classes, so we aren't just restricted to having arts from one extra class. We can use almost any Master Arts from any class. Pretty cool. In this clip, we can see Uni using Lanza's weapon, but it quickly changes to these fans, which we've never seen before. Even the heroes in this trailer don't have them. My theory is that they're Nimways. I don't know why I think that, but I do. When Uni uses this fan art called Way Home, she inflicts an ailment called Burst on this dazed enemy. This seems to be the final stage of that combo, similar to how Smash finishes after launch. The reason you would use this besides Smash might be that it removes buffs or something, and maybe Smash deals more damage. I don't know what it would be, but I just have to imagine that there's a different result. This yellow enemy we've seen for months finally has a name, and it's Bigus Darbus. That just sounds like a meme, so meme away everyone. This is the new funny enemy. They show off fusion arts on this guy, and the narrator explains that you can only fuse compatible arts with each other, so there are some types of restrictions. And now we can talk about the heroes. They revealed a ton of new ones, so strap in. Ashira is the first one, and she's a defender with the Twin Blade class called Lone Exile. Fiona is a part of the new Horn species and is a healer that uses this trident we see in her official art. Alexandria is an attacker that uses a whip sword. Her class Incursor gives her access to higher crit rates, so I'm sure she'll be very good. Ray is an attacker with the Full Metal Jaguar class, which is an interesting name. It's the same one that Elma has in Xenoblade X. The Xenoblade 3 website also accidentally revealed that Ethel becomes a hero. Oops. Unfortunate that it was spoiled, but honestly not surprising in the slightest. There are a couple more that were shown off, but not named. This Machina girl is extremely cute, but we've only ever seen this shot of her. This Indoline guy we do in fact see in the hero selection menu, and we can see that he's a healer. Speaking of the selection menu, there's a couple things I want to talk about here. On the top left we can see that there's a censored hero, meaning that this is something they definitely don't want us knowing about. The only things that we can say for sure is that they're an attacker based on the red in the bottom right, and that their color scheme might be on the darker side. Other than that, there's really no telling who it could be. What do you guys think? Who is this mysterious hero? This menu also shows us that we can pretty much change the hero whenever we want after acquiring them, which is a huge relief. They have different levels, which means that they do level up individually though. The heroes themselves also have special titles. For instance, Ashira is known as Undying Blade Ashira. We know that Ethel is called Silvercoat Ethel, so it would seem that all of the heroes are titled similarly. You might remember that Kamaravi has a title, and indeed, in the class selection menu, we can see a locked silhouette of what looks like Kamaravi on the bottom left. There are a couple of other silhouettes here too. This one, which is a defender, and this one, which is an attacker. The one on the bottom looks extremely weird, almost like it isn't even a person. Maybe it's even a Mobius? That's a stretch though. This info panel also shows us the Master Arts and Master Skills that we can unlock from classes, so not only are arts able to be transferred to other characters, but skills as well. Definitely taking some cues from Xenoblade X's system. Behind the info panel, we can actually see that there are more classes on this screen. In total, we're shown that there are at least 23 classes in Xenoblade 3. I'm sure there will be way more. The last thing to note in this menu is that you can use Nupon coins to do something here, maybe unlocking classes? Lastly, it's explained to us that we have near full outfit customization. If I'm understanding correctly, we can mix and match outfits how we see fit as long as the classes are unlocked on the characters. The Ouroboros section begins with showing us a clip of Van Damme and how he is the one that turned the party into Ouroboros. He presses the button on this machine, and his soul leaves his body, which doesn't seem very good. But it happens to Noah and Mio too, and they were fine, so maybe it's not too bad. The Direct also reveals to us that despite Ouroboros requiring pairs, each party member is able to turn into one that they can control. You can swap between a pair's Ouroboros at any time in battle as well. Mio's Ouroboros has undeniable similarities to KOS-MOS. I really think it's cool that Noah's looks like Veltal from Xenogears and Mio's looks like KOS-MOS from Xenosaga. That's a super nice callback. We also learned that Ouroboros have skill trees to develop in order to unlock new abilities and increase stats. The final part of the Direct shows us what the DLC is going to be. The expansion pass is going to follow a staggered release structure, just like Xenoblade 2's did. The website goes into a bit more detail on the specifics though, most notably that the challenge battle add-ons will contain 2 different rule sets for the mode, rather than just 2 challenge battles, which I read it as originally. There are some theories that the 2 extra heroes will end up being future-connected Shulk and Pyra. That could be an explanation for the expansion pass art. I think, though, that this new story scenario is where they'll show up. I think that whatever this story is, it might be the big Xenoblade crossover we've always been hoping for, where a ton of characters from each game come together to fight against an enemy. Only time will tell though. Finally, we were shown amiibo support for the Shulk amiibo on top of the generic support for the other amiibo. I am curious what the support for the Pyra and Mithra amiibo will be when they come out though. It's insane that this game will be supported until almost 2024. That means we're gonna have Xenoblade 3 update content for the next 2 years. We have less than 1 month until this game comes out, and my excitement is reaching a boiling point. This has been the biggest update yet in terms of new information, so hopefully this is enough to satisfy all of us for now. It does seem like Note Volume 7 is coming though, so be prepared for that update. If you liked the video, be sure to let me know, and subscribe for more Xenoblade 3 content, and just Xeno content in general. Special thanks to all of my channel members, and super special thanks to Toplay and Polygloom, who are legendary Blade members. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!